You can learn a lot about trucking in a single day. You can learn that live unload means absolutely nothing. It's just words that somebody typed into a load board to make you feel better about your life choices. You can learn that plenty of parking is one of the most casually dangerous lies in the English language. It's typically right up there with "we'll get right to you" and "the paperwork's almost ready." You can learn that a man in a Honda Civic with no trailer, no freight, and no sense of spatial awareness will still somehow genuinely believe that you can stop 80,000 pounds in the same distance he can stop his little car. And you can absolutely learn that everybody in this country loves truck drivers, right up until the moment that it's actually time to treat them like human beings. At which point it seems like the schedules get tighter, the memories get shorter, and suddenly the driver's the problem again. That's trucking. And honestly, that's why the show exists. What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the very first official episode of Behind the Wheel. I'm genuinely glad that you guys are here with me today. Whether you're listening from the cab of your truck, you're in a truck stop waiting for your clock to reset, or you're at that customer who said they'd get right to you, however you found this show, I really do appreciate you guys being here with me today. If I'm being honest, I've been wanting to put this together for a while now, and the reason is pretty simple. If there's one thing this industry never seems to run out of, it's material. There's always something going on, it seems. There's a new regulation, a new freight problem, there's a market shift nobody saw coming, and right in the middle of all that noise, you and I are still out here just trying to get loaded. We're trying to stay legal, trying to find those magical parking spots that don't seem to exist. We're trying to make decent money and protect whatever is left of our sanity after a week of watching this industry find creative ways to complicate our lives. That's what the show is going to be for. So let me tell you a little about what Behind the Wheel actually is, because I think it's worth laying out clearly in this first episode before we get into kind of the meat and potato of things. The show is going to live in the space between two things that matter a whole lot in trucking. The first, what's actually happening in the industry, such as the news, the regulations, the market moves, company decisions, policy changes, all of that kind of stuff. The second is going to evolve more around of what life actually is and what it's like behind the wheel. It's going to be the daily rhythm, the frustrations, that really weird, dark humor that we all seem to develop over the years, the trade-offs, and the reality that drivers carry around with them every single day that most people never hear described accurately. I want the show to have a real sense of range. Not just headlines, not just venting. I want it to be kind of a combination of both. I want it to be useful and honest, as well as grounded in the experience of the people who actually live this life. And I want it to sound like trucking actually sounds, which means it's going to be serious, it's going to be funny, and it's going to be frustrating at times. And honestly, it's going to have all three within the same 5 minutes, because you and I both know that that's basically the emotional architecture of this industry. So if you're a company driver, if you're an owner-operator, whether you are local, regional, or OTR, or if you are just somebody who understands what it means to lose half of your day because one building can't get its act together, welcome. This show is going to be made just for you. All right, so let's kick off this properly with the first segment, which is going to be classified as road headlines. For this first episode, I'm not diving into a specific news story just yet. What I want to do is first explain what this segment is going to be and why I think it matters, because the why is just as important as the content itself. Trucking has no shortage of headlines. Pick a week, any week, and there's something. It's a new rule out of Washington. It's a carrier shutting down. It's a new piece of technology being rolled out that promises to revolutionize the industry and somehow makes the driver's job harder in practice. There's always something, it seems like. But here's the problem. A lot of that coverage is missing something extremely critical. And what it's missing is the driver's point of view. You get the company angle, you get the government angle, you get the investor angle, and my personal favorite is the transportation thought leader, whatever the hell that means. It seems like everybody gets a microphone. They always get a panel discussion and a carefully worded quote. And somehow the person who's actually out there dealing with the consequences of all of these decisions is usually the last one anybody asks about what it looks like on the ground. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about it. Because in trucking, road level is where the truth shows up first. It's where the nice language typically gets tested the most. That's where the policy meets the pavement. That's where the big idea either holds up or falls flat on its face in the middle of a shipper's parking lot. A story can sound perfectly reasonable in an article. A press release can be packed with words like innovation and efficiency and commitment to the driver experience. You know, all those usual corporate greatest hits. And then it hits the road, and suddenly a driver is sitting for 3 unpaid hours, getting blamed for a delay he had nothing to do with, or trying to navigate one more rule that made excellent sense in the conference room and turned into a daily headache in practice. That gap, right there, is where I want this show to live. The gap between what trucking looks like on paper and what trucking actually feels like in real life. Because there are really 2 versions of this industry. There's the version that gets talked about in board meetings and policy briefings. Polished, forward-thinking, driver-focused. And then there's the version drivers actually live, which sounds more like the load's not ready. There's no overnight parking. Detention was denied. And if you've been driving long enough, you already know that the customer's running a little behind can mean anything from 45 minutes to what feels like the quiet collapse of your entire schedule. Every week, the goal of this segment is to take the bigger industry stories and break down the way drivers actually need them broken down. Not just what happened, but why it matters and who it actually affects. Who benefits? Who gets squeezed? Is this real progress, or is this theater with a logo on it? Those are the questions I want to ask, because trucking already has more than enough spin. Drivers deserve a conversation that starts from the driver's seat. And that's what Road Headlines is going to be every single week. Now, that's the industry side of things. But trucking is more than headlines, more than policies and market charts and statements from people in dress shoes explaining your profession back to you, which is my favorite if we're being honest. I love it when people do that, by the way. So let's move into the part of the show that gets a little more personal. The next segment is going to be called Doc Talk. And this is where I want to talk about the everyday rhythm of life behind the wheel. If you really understand this industry, not just the business of it, but the reality of it, you have to understand the daily experiences of the people living in it. And the most honest word I can come up with for that experience is weird. If you really think about it, trucking is a genuinely weird life. It's routine and chaos living in the same cab. It's structure and total unpredictability running on the same clock. You can wake up with a solid plan, a good route, clean hours, perfect weather, every reason to expect a smooth day. And by lunchtime, the whole thing has gone sideways because of a late load or a facility that gave you a dock number for a door that's been blocked by a broken forklift since last Tuesday. And by the way, nobody thought to mention it to you until you already backed in. That's trucking. It's one of the only jobs in existence where a good day can genuinely mean nothing caught fire, the load was actually ready, and you found parking before dock. That counts. That is an actual real victory. And if you've been driving long enough, you don't even need me to explain that. You felt it the second I said that. A good day in trucking doesn't always feel like winning anything. Sometimes it just feels like the system tried its best to ruin your mood and came up a little short. You take it, you log it, and then you move on. The reason I want to make space for this part of the conversation is because the day-to-day life of a driver tells you more about the health of this industry than most of the headlines do. The daily reality is where the patterns live. The waiting, the time pressure, the chronic parking shortage, the small efficiencies that somehow keep managing to benefit every part in the transaction except the driver. The constant, relentless need to adapt and problem solve and stay sharp, while an industry built on tight deadlines keeps finding new ways to waste your time. That's real labor. It's mental, logistical, emotional labor. And not nearly enough people talk about it like it matters. A lot of folks outside trucking think the job is driving. And look, I mean, obviously, driving is a pretty core part of it, right? But it's not the whole picture. The job is planning, it's problem solving on the fly, it's managing time and fatigue, and equipment and weather, and customers, and bad information all at once, while also managing your own head in a profession that has a quiet but very real way of grinding on your mental state. That part deserves way more acknowledgement than it gets. Because one thing trucking will teach you in a hurry is this: your time is valuable to everyone except the people who are wasting it. You can do every single thing right. You can plan perfectly, you can arrive on time, you can have all your paperwork ready to go, and you will still lose half your day because somebody 3 steps up the chain dropped the ball before you even got there. Then somehow that lost time still becomes your problem to manage. Nobody's adjusting the schedule to account for the delay that was caused. You can absorb it and keep moving, and that gets old fast. But here's the other side of it. And there is another side. Trucking also produces moments of genuinely unintentional comedy that you could not write if you tried. And I think that's a big part of why drivers tend to have such a finely tuned sense of humor. Because, man, if you don't learn to laugh at some of this stuff, you're going to end up arguing with a vending machine at 2 in the morning, and nobody wins that fight. The directions alone are a gift. You will get directions that read like a scavenger hunt designed by a bitter former employee who left on bad terms and wanted the last laugh. You'll get sent to Dock 12 like it's a straightforward thing, not accounting for the fact that Dock 12 is hidden behind 7 blind corners and a stack of pallets that's been there since the Obama administration. And my personal favorite, if you're asking, is you can't miss it. In trucking, that phrase is not a comfort. That is a threat. Every driver knows you can't miss it means you will absolutely will miss it. You'll miss it twice. And when you finally find where you're supposed to be going, you're going to wonder how anyone thought that that was a reasonable set of directions. And of course, there is the general driving public, four-wheelers. God bless all of them. But they navigate traffic with a breathtaking, almost artistic disregard for basic physics. They'll cut in front of a loaded semi at highway speed like they've done the math, and they like the odds. They'll slam on the brake to catch an exit that they've known about for the last half mile, apparently deciding the last possible second is the right moment. And then they look at you like you're the unreasonable one for existing in their vicinity with an 80,000-pound vehicle. The confidence is simultaneously terrifying and impressive. I don't know, it's like you almost have to respect it. All of that, the absurdity, the humor, the frustration, the small victories, That's part of the culture of the road. It shapes a driver's day and perspective in ways that are hard to explain to someone who hasn't lived it. Trucking isn't just a business story. It's a human story. It's about pressure and rhythm and routine and trade-offs. The independence alongside the isolation. It's about the pride in the work alongside the exhaustion of an industry that doesn't always show that work the respect it deserves. It's about the small wins that mean more to a driver than they've ever meant to anyone else. A receiver who actually knows what they're doing, a legal space at the end of a long day, a customer who actually meant it when they said they get right out to you. Those moments will restore your faith in humanity for at least 7 to 10 business minutes, and then somebody will do something in traffic to bring you right back down. That's what I call balance. I want this show to honor that reality, not romanticize it, not over-dramatize it, but talk about it honestly. Because drivers know immediately when something sounds fake. They know when someone's describing trucking from the outside without any real understanding of the weight of that lifestyle. And I never want this show to sound like that. I want it to sound lived in. I want it to sound like something that belongs out on the road. So that's going to be Dog Talk. And with all that being said, that brings us to the last segment of every episode, which I'm going to call Final Mile. This is where I want to leave you with the bigger thought, the takeaway that sits underneath everything else we talked about. Because at the end of the day, this podcast isn't just about news, and it isn't just about road stories. It's about perspective. It's about building a space where trucking gets talked about the way it actually deserves to be talked about. Honestly, directly, with humor where it fits, and hard criticism where it's earned. And with genuine respect for the people doing the work. Too often, conversations about this industry break it into pieces. People talk about rates and technology or safety metrics, and every one of those conversations is legitimate. But a lot of them have a habit of forgetting the person in the seat. And to me, that's the most expensive mistake you can make in trucking, because none of it works without the driver. The driver is the one carrying the actual weight, not just the freight, but the pressure, the responsibility, the problem solving, and the adaptability. The driver is the one keeping all of it moving in real time. I think that a lot of drivers are genuinely hungry for a kind of conversation that reflects that. Not fake motivational content, not manufactured urgency designed to generate clicks, not sanitized language that describes your daily life back to you in terms that make it sound like logistics brochure. But also not endless negativity, not doom and gloom for its own sake. Something real. Something balanced enough to recognize the pride in this work, while being honest enough to call out what's genuinely broken about the industry surrounding it. Because there is real pride. There's pride in doing hard things consistently and doing them well. There's pride in keeping your composure when the day is working against you. And being dependable when dependability is the whole thing. There's a particular kind of quiet satisfaction in knowing that when a lot of people were talking about something or posting about it, you were actually out there doing it. You were moving the freight. You were holding the schedule. You were carrying that weight. That deserves respect. And I want behind the wheel to give it that respect, without pretending that the industry surrounding the work is anywhere close to perfect. Because it isn't. There's too much wasted time. There's too much pressure. There's too many decisions being made far away from the road that keeps landing on the shoulders of the people already carrying the heaviest load. That gap between how trucking gets described and how trucking actually gets lived in is worth closing. Even only in conversation. Even if it's only for an hour a week. So here's what the show's going to be. Every single episode. We're going to take a look at the industry honestly and the daily life on the road honestly. We're going to tell stories that actually sound like they came from someone who understands the life. We're going to break down the headlines in a way that starts from the driver's seat instead of working its way down from the boardroom. We're going to call out nonsense when it deserves it, and acknowledge the real dignity in this work when it deserves acknowledgement, which is more often than this industry tends to admit. From the road up, that's the direction this show runs. And if a driver can put this on during a long stretch, or a late night, or a slow wait at a dock, and feel like somebody actually gets it, then this show is doing exactly what I would like for it to do. That's the goal. So that's it for this episode on Behind the Wheel. Thank you for being here at the start of this thing. It really does mean a lot to me. If this gave you something to think about or something to relate to, make sure to share it with another driver. And also, follow the show so you don't miss what's coming next. Be safe out there, guys. Keep your head on the swivel. Watch out for those four-wheelers making decisions with way more confidence than spatial awareness. And I will catch you guys in the next one.